What is the crack, everyone? It's Nathan here, aka the Rambling Kern, and head instructor of Kern School of Combat. So I am part of a Facebook group called the Irish Stick. Really great page, a lot of great information with regards to Irish martial arts and stick fighting and just stick making and all the great things that go with that. And a recent post sparked a lot of debate, and it's one that I kind of wanted to discuss in this video. And that is basically what makes Irish stick fighting Irish. So the comment itself was something along the lines of basically doing techniques with an Irish stick does not mean you're doing Irish stick fighting. And there's a lot of kind of interesting things to dive into with that, and this is quite a big and complex topic, but I think one that kind of needs to be touched on. So first off, I really agree with the sentiment of that statement. If I pick up my Irish made Irish stick and start swinging it around, as an Irishman swinging an Irish stick doing stick fighting, it doesn't mean that I'm doing Irish stick fighting. And what do I mean by that? And this is where it gets a bit tricky, right? So in the realm of Irish stick fighting, you have two surviving schools of Irish stick fighting that we know about. There could be more out there, and I'm going to touch on that in a few minutes, but the thing is, there are two styles that are out there. Now, there are people who basically reconstruct what Irish stick fighting might have looked like, and all those groups are very open about their methodology, and I have a lot of admiration for the work that they're doing. And there are other groups who apply their own area of expertise, say it is in Japanese or Southeast Asian, such as Filipino martial arts, and apply them to the Irish stick and call that whatever they want. And basically they make it very clear that what they're doing is a style of stick fighting, just with an Irish stick involved. Again, absolutely fine with it. Where things get tricky and where things get awfully complex is when people say, oh yeah, I'm just doing Irish stick fighting, this is Irish stick fighting. You wouldn't know the style, but this is Irish stick fighting. So if you want to come learn my super secret style, come to me and I'll teach you. So the thing with that is that it is essentially false advertising. And what I mean by that is you're telling someone that you have learned a style and that you're practicing a style that you don't. And this has happened numerous times over my lifetime and the years that I've been in Irish stick fighting, and it's been about half of my life, slightly more at this point, that I've been involved in Irish stick fighting in one form or another, even just as someone who's watching it from afar and then eventually coaching it and now holding regular classes, teaching and doing workshops and all that sort of stuff. I've seen a lot of people come who claim that they're doing Irish stick fighting, and it's very clear that they're just doing another style with an Irish stick in their hand. Now, the reason why it gets so tricky is because for a lot of people around the world, they can't get to someone to train with. And for me, I went to very great efforts and great expense to train with people and put in a hell of a lot of effort and money and travel in order to train with people so that I could learn this. And a lot of people aren't in that place, or in kind of the modern world, they kind of want the quick route to learning it. And sometimes that involves just finding the nearest person, or the person who has an online course, or whatever. They're trying to find the quick route to learning that thing that is otherwise very difficult to learn. And the issue with that arises is that these people who are claiming to do something that they're not then end up taking money from unsuspecting people. And that is kind of a murky area in itself. And the easiest way I can kind of explain this, as someone else explained it to me before, is that if I've done boxing, I've done boxing since I was quite young. If I was to put on a karate gi and start boxing people and say, this is my secret style of Nathan Ryu, and this is my style that no one's ever heard about, and I'll teach you for £1,000 a week, and that'll be that. It doesn't mean that I'm doing karate. It means I'm doing boxing and a karate gi. And it's just like swinging an Irish stick around when you're not having a background in Irish stick fighting and claiming what you're doing is Irish stick fighting, that's where things get tricky. And like I said, I have a lot of admiration for people who are applying what they've learned to Irish stick or to using an Irish stick and just being very open about it. That is great. And even in my own classes, even in my Bada Basics video, which some of you might have seen, I lay out very clearly there are many techniques that I've learned through having studied stick fighting in various martial arts over the years that are not part of Antrim Bada or the Dós style. I lay that out very clearly, and I tell my members what we're about to learn comes from this, or this drill I've adopted from this in order to fit into the framework of what we do. And I make that very clear to people, and the main reason for that is, one, I like to give credit to who I've learned from, and two, I want full transparency of where those techniques come from and how and why they work. So it is, like I say, a fairly complex topic, and it's one that might ruffle a few feathers, but it's an important one to talk about. Simply just swinging one of these around and saying, oh well, all sticks can only move in so many ways, and I've learned these great complex systems, so clearly what I'm doing is Irish stick fighting, and it must be better than yours because I have all this experience in these other arts. That's grand, do that, but tell people I'm not doing Irish stick fighting, I'm doing stick fighting with an Irish stick, because you're claiming to do something that you're not, and you're taking away the legitimacy of an art that is struggling to get its feet and find its place in the world, and to come back after many, many years of oppression. And on that note, this is something I see constantly whenever Irish stick fighting gets brought up. People who make the joke of like, oh, surely if you just get drunk and swing a stick around, you do an Irish stick fighting, isn't that? Oh, great. A lot of that comes from really horrible colonial stereotypes, and I would really ask people to please not do that. There's so many other things that I could compare it to, but there's a lot of traditional martial arts that have had that treatment, and Irish culture is very much the same. And anyone who knows Irish culture and is familiar with Irish views on stick fighting will understand a lot of hesitancy among a lot of Irish people to view this and weapon and this art as anything legitimate. And talking about it that way, even in a joking way, is kind of conforming to those things. And I know I'm not trying to be killjoy here, but it's an important thing to understand when we're talking about this. It is legitimate art. It is effective. I have used it in various different scenarios, sparring various different people to great effect, as have other people I know, and as have students of mine. So it is a wonderful art, and it is one that's important to preserve, and that is kind of my final point, is preservation. And that is why, for myself, I make it very clear in my classes where techniques come from. Because the important part about preserving these arts is that we know with our two surviving styles what they are and what they look like. And yes, the argument can be said, only, sticks can be swung in only X amount of ways, but if we look at boxing, again, classic example, we have maybe 6 or 8 punches. It's the combinations and the variations of those that make styles and make things what they are. You could look at Mike Tyson or Lomachenko, they're doing the same thing, but it looks completely different. And you wouldn't say that they're, practicing in the exact same way. And that's kind of where stick fighting comes into its own. Styles are there, and they're an important cultural tool to preserve. And the last point I want to touch on is also, like I said in the beginning, there may be other styles out there that we have not discovered yet. And that is the really interesting and fascinating thing about Irish stick fighting. We're not going to find manuals, we're not going to find books, we're not going to find secret scrolls hidden in a mountaintop somewhere, because these things didn't exist. These were arts practiced by very poor people who for the most part were poor illiterate and weren't allowed to practice combat in any way. So most of these arts were handed down, and I would say there's a lot of people who were shown this stuff who simply just didn't think anything of it. It was just my ex-relative swinging a stick around and that's that. So there may very well still be arts out there. And when people pop up saying, I'm teaching this, and my dad taught me and his dad taught him, and this is my secret style, we do know from the other styles and from historical sources that Irish stick fighting looked a specific way. So that is something that we do know. So if we see something that looks completely different to that, obviously you're going to be pretty skeptical about it, and you should be, as you should be with the arts that are currently here. And that is one little final point. I know I said that a few times, but a final point that is important. I know often people say, oh, if the art's effective, it shouldn't matter where it came from, it shouldn't matter the background of it, you know, its effectiveness is the important thing. And to that, I agree and I disagree. And this is a little bit of a nuanced thing, but my point being, there's a lot of arts where you look at them and you think, oh, that's fanciful stuff that will never work. Until it's put into a setting where you can test it and see how it's meant to work. And that is why I am such a big advocate of sparring. For example, as we've seen in MMA over the past decade, the front snap kick was something that everyone just discredited as the thing you learn on day one of karate. You just flick your leg up in the air and oh, that's just a silly kick and it's never really going to be that effective in high level combat sports. And then we see people constantly getting knocked out by it in the UFC and in various different fight organizations. You know, something like MMA is a good example because it's not a style, it's a set of rules, and that is what drives the style. Very much with stick fighting, you will see various different types of sparring. For myself, I've done a number of dog brother gatherings to test Irish stick fighting to make sure what I'm learning is effective. And sometimes I've done them and I've come back and I've gone, right, those things didn't work the way I thought they should. What can I do to make them work? So I go back, I spar, I try again, and I figure it out. And that is just as important as preserving the art, because if you understand why the art is how it is, then you get a much better and deeper understanding of its history and why it is there. Now I know this is a long ramble that covers a lot of different things, and if people want further videos of me breaking this down or discussing it, or if you'd like to discuss it with me in person, I do have a Patreon. You can subscribe there for whatever amount you want, and I'll be happy to, you know, chat back and forth on this. And if you just want to see more videos on this or to discuss it, pop a comment below. I'm more than happy to have a chat about it. Do all the good stuff, like, comment, subscribe. It does help. I do hope this kind of gets a few brains turning and kind of makes people think a little bit. And let me know your take. Let me know what you think. I know this has gone through various different arts over the years, and I know people have various different takes on it. Like I said, I've seen various different people come through claiming to know things that don't. Even one famous example of a person who'd done that in 3 or 4 different disciplines, who I, about 10 years later, found out from other friends in another art that he was doing the same thing in their art. It's a very big, very complex topic with a lot of nuance to it. So if you want to hear more, let me know. I appreciate you watching. Thanks once again, and slán.